So here's the plan for today. Wife from the Mentoring Center coming in. She's going to talk about mentoring and the opportunities that are available to you. And the reason you want to look at the mentoring is, well, I'll ask you, why do you want to look at maybe mentoring children right now? How would you think about it? Nobody? Resume builder, exactly. You want to do as much as you can with children right now to get out there and say, these are the things I've already done to help with children, to help with students, to help people learn. So the more you do that, the more opportunities you have to do that, the better you make your name rise to the top. The second part of the day, we have different speakers from different master's programs throughout campus here, and they will talk to you about their different programs, what other options are there in a career in education, and then you guys will have an opportunity to ask them questions. Okay? And then the end of the day, the last section of the day, we will have Dr. Casto is going to talk to you about licensure. How do you get licensed in Ohio? You can't refer necessarily to other states because we're Ohio State, so we're going to focus on Ohio. But if you're thinking about other states, we recommend looking at those websites. And we're also going to have Randy Diggs from Worthington is coming in, and he's going to talk about how to get hired. How do you get a job? Which is ultimately everybody's goal, right? So that's kind of where our day is going and the things that we have going on. We're now going to move on to our next section. We have kind of a panel of presenters. We're all going to take a little bit to kind of talk about their different areas. And then we're going to let them, most of them need to head out of here pretty quick, so we're going to let them all go. So we're going to start with Dr. Helen Malone from Special Ed.
Morning. Can you all hear me if I don't use the mic? Especially you back there. Okay. So I'm in special ed. I'm the chair of the program right now. We offer 14 programs in special education, 3 at the undergraduate level, 4 at the master's level, and a doctoral program, and then a couple of endorsements, which probably aren't what you need. So most people who go into special ed want to be teachers, right? It's pretty standard. You go into the classroom, you work with little kids with disabilities, you work with elementary, middle school, high school kids with disabilities across the range from really mild disabilities to really significant disabilities. We train across the spectrum. We prepare teachers to work with basically any child with any disability. You choose a track and we'll prepare you to be a teacher in that area. At the graduate level, we have those same licenses. So a lot of times we have teachers who they get their undergraduate license in one track and they decide that they want to get a second license. So maybe you get a license in early childhood special education, which certifies you to work pre-K through 3. You decide, gosh, I really want to work with 4- and 5-year-olds who have significant disabilities. I'm going to go back and I'm going to get my K-12 license in moderate intensive disabilities. So we offer that. We also have people who get a license in another area, so general ed, art ed, music, whatever it is, and they want to come back and they want to be able to work with special ed students. So they'll come back into our master's program and they can get a license. We also offer a master's degree in applied behavior analysis. So we have people who don't necessarily want to work in a classroom, but they do want to work with kids who have disabilities. Usually this is a much more clinical position. So either in-home therapy, we have a lot of students who, when they graduate, they go and they work with psychologists as the certified behavior analyst. And that's a separate certification. You become a board certified behavior analyst through our master's program. They're separate, so you don't have to get your certification, but you can. And then we have our doctoral program. And doctoral programs are for those people who are interested in either preparing teachers, which is what we do here at Ohio State, and or conducting research with students who have disabilities. We also do that here at Ohio State. Ohio State is a Research 1 institution, meaning that it's research intensive. So all faculty in special ed are expected to be doing research to figure out what are the best practices that we can use for kids with disabilities, how do we apply those to kids with disabilities, and then how do we teach those skills to teachers, all you, so that when you're in the classroom, the kids that you're working with are getting the best services. There is a tremendous shortage of special educators in this country, from the classroom through the university. So anybody interested in special education, you will always have a job somewhere, whether it's in a classroom or at a university. There's not such a shortage of behavior analysts. It is a field that is growing rapidly, largely working with kids with autism, but not solely. So that area, there's still a need, but there's not shortages. Okay, so in special ed, you can pretty much work in any classroom with any child of any age with a disability, and there's a need. So in terms of career security, special ed is an area where you would always have a job. There are always kids with disabilities who need teachers, and there are always teachers who need to be trained to work with kids who have disabilities.
Next we have from school psychology, we have Dr. Antoinette Miranda. She's going to come up and talk about school psychology, and then we'll follow with some more, and then they'll all be available for questions. So.
Okay, thank you. Can everybody hear me? Okay, so I am in my 27th year here at Ohio State as a professor of school psychology. My major was psychology, and most of the people that go into school psychology are psychology majors. However, we do have education majors, and oftentimes it's people that think they want to be a teacher. They kind of go through student teaching and they decide, this isn't quite for me, but I want to be in the schools. And so sometimes school psychology is another option. School psychology really blends education and psychology together. In 2011, it was one of the top 10 majors or disciplines to go into. Has job security, much like what Helen was talking about. All of our students have 100% employment when they graduate. We are a small program. We take anywhere from about 12 to 15 students. It's a specialist program, an educational specialist program, and a doctoral program. Probably around the country, about 75% of people that go into school psychology get their educational specialist degree. Only about 30%, 32% get a doctorate degree. Over 83% of them work in school, public schools, some in private schools, but the vast majority of our students go into public schools. It's a 3-year program. It's 2 years of coursework and a year of paid internship. The state of Ohio is the only state that gives paid internships. It's something that was established well over 45 years ago. You don't have to look for your internship. We just simply place you in there. When you come in, first year will be foundational courses. You get into schools right away. The second year is full year practicum where you're in the schools. And the types of things you're going to be doing, most often assessment. That is really the biggest part of our job, probably about 50 to 60%. We are very closely tied to special ed. In fact, that's where our funding comes through, is special ed, because you're identifying kids for possible special ed diagnosis. The other times, the other things you do are interventions, both academic and behavioral, in terms of working with teachers. You may engage in some counseling, some crisis intervention, possibly working with parents and working with teachers. The job responsibility sometimes depends on the kind of school you're in. If you're in a rural school district, you're going to have a lot of schools, and so you may have many more cases that you do that you're going to engage in. So it's really a good opportunity to work directly with kids and then also work indirectly with kids through teachers in terms of developing interventions. If you want to get a PhD, where do our students go? Most students get a PhD because they want to have more options open to them. You can go into academia, some of them will go into hospital settings, some of them will go into private practice, but many of them end up going into the schools. You generally don't get your PhD because you want to make more money. I'll just tell you that right now. You're going to make about the same amount of money, just a little bit more than somebody with a specialist degree. It's just that you have more options open to you in terms of the kind of things you want to do. Right now, many of our PhD students, several of them are in private practice. They work part-time in the school and they have a part-time private practice. Some of them have gone into academia, so there's a variety of things you can do. On a whole, if we take in about 15 students, about 8 to 10 of them are going to be EES students, and then about 4 or 5 are going to be doctoral students. If you think about what are some of the things you can do to prepare, these are all pluses but not minuses, meaning if you don't have these experiences, it doesn't mean we're not going to consider you. But oftentimes having experience with students, working with kids. We also, since 2000, have a specialty focus. Our specialty focus is urban school psychology. and an emphasis on social justice, and so we talk a lot about that. The practicum is completely in Columbus City Schools, but one of the things I tell students is that we're going to train you just like any other school psychologist. You're going to come out with an urban specialty focus, but you can take that to rural areas, and you can take it to suburban areas. Why? Because we mostly talk about poverty and kids in poverty. Rural areas have kids in poverty. The biggest difference, they don't have the density, and suburban districts have a lot of kids in poverty. People don't realize that, but kids that are low income are increasing in suburban districts. So you come out with a skill set of how to work with kids, knowing some of the unique things about being in poverty and how that affects academic and behavioral behavior in schools. Like I said, there's pretty good job security. We expect to continue that. Students that get trained in Ohio pretty much can go anywhere and get licensed. You will be licensed by the Ohio Department of Education. And then you can also get general psych license. You need general psych license to practice privately. So you're eligible to do that. We do have students that have been able to go all over and get reciprocity, so that's not a problem at all. We've had students in California, Florida, Michigan, Illinois that have had no problem kind of transferring their credentials over to there. I'm going to stop there. I think that's just a really broad overview. Like I said, many of your classes, there's a lot of psychology emphasis, but we also take a lot of classes in education as well. So it's a really nice blend of both of those things, and we really do make an effort to get students in the schools right away. Your first semester, you will be in the school shadowing a school psychologist. Any questions or yes?
I'm not sure if you mentioned this, but is this an undergraduate or master's program?
It's a master's program. It's an EDS actually. An EDS Ed Specialist is 60 semester hours, whereas a master's is 30. So we used to give a master's degree, but most districts pay more money for a master's plus 30. And so that's why most of it's really a specialist level. So it's a unique degree that there's not a lot of them out there, but you'll graduate with the EDS degree. So the thing to know is that it's 3 years post-baccalaureate. Yes?
Do you have to have a specific undergrad?
No. Like I said, most of our majors are most of them are psychology majors, but not all the time. We've had a student that had an MBA that came back into the program. We've had lawyers come back into the program, and we do have education majors that come back into the program. We have a lot of people from HDFS as well. So, and they do fine. There's not a lot of difference between those that were psychology majors. Most of them say they sort of have to just work a little bit harder because they didn't have a strong psychology background, but students can do it without a psychology background. Other questions?
Next we have from Ed Admin, talking about the administrator license that are available to you. We have Dr. Melissa Conrath from Ed Admin.
Well, good morning. I'm Dr. Melissa Conrath, and I've been here at Ohio State on a regular faculty appointment for 3 years. But prior to that, I was superintendent at Worthington Schools, and before that, I spent about 30 years in K-12 education as a teacher and moving into various administrative positions. So I'm somewhat familiar with the career path a lot of people take when they go into K-12 education, and I'm now in educational administration. Our program area are all at the graduate level. We have 3 areas of program certification and or endorsements, and the first of which is a teacher leader endorsement. So for somebody who might be interested in staying in the classroom but just taking on more leadership positions, a teacher leader endorsement would allow a person to move into an instructional coach position, possibly serve as a mentor to beginning teachers. They're teachers who have been successful in the classroom and have chosen to stay working under a teacher license but want to take on additional leadership responsibilities. In order to get that endorsement, you have to already have a master's degree and actually have taught for 9 years. So that's quite a ways further into a teaching career. But we do have a number of people that pursue that simply because of opening up those opportunities. Most of our programs, the students that we have in our graduate programs are people that are pursuing a principal's license. Although the interesting thing is probably half of the people in the program are not necessarily interested in becoming a principal, but they want to move into administrative role in a school district. Our master's degree program and principal licensure program are joined together. If you do not have a master's degree and you want to come back for a principal's license, the coursework is the same. It's 10 courses plus a 6-month field experience. And when you're finished with that, assuming you pass the Ohio assessment for educator exam, then you will also end up with a master's degree. And as I mentioned, a lot of the students in our program are not necessarily interested in immediately moving into a principal's position, but that license will open up the door for just about every administrative position in a school district. You could become a curriculum director, you could become a special education director, you could be an assistant principal, a principal, a curriculum supervisor. So it opens up the door for just about every position that would be available in a district other than either a superintendent position or a school treasurer's position. So, and what's happening in the field right now is that the number of candidates, the people interested in moving into those positions has gone down, and finding good administrators is something that districts really have to work hard to do. So if moving into administration is something that you would be interested in, it's certainly a very good career field right now. And as I mentioned, a lot of the people in the program are not necessarily interested in moving right away, but they pursue the master's degree because of the coursework, and it broadens their understanding of how school districts operate. Coursework really covers a variety of topics: general leadership, ethics, school law, community relations. So a lot of the knowledges and skills in the program are beneficial to teachers who decide to stay in the classroom. We have one other area, licensure area, and that is a superintendent's license. In order to get that, you have to have served as an administrator for 2 years, and then the program itself is a year-long program and only requires 3 courses. And by completing that license, you will be eligible then to either be an assistant superintendent or a superintendent. And the fun thing about being a superintendent is you get to call snow days. So that's one of the things I dislike most, because it's hard to make a good decision at 4:30 in the morning. So, but along with that, we have some just graduate level programs. We have a master's degree that doesn't necessarily lead to any license, but a master's degree in administration. We also started up an EDD program, and most of the students that we have in that program are people who are in education, in K-12 education, and they want to go on to get a doctoral degree, and they're interested in a practitioner's degree. And we just started that this year. So that's pretty much it. Any questions about educational administration? Yeah.
Would you recommend that if someone was interested in education and administration, that they should be a teacher for a little bit before they decide to pursue a master's in administration?
Yeah, in fact, the license requires that you have a minimum of 2 years teaching experience before you're eligible to get a principal's license. So the principal license requires that you complete the coursework, you obtain a master's degree, and you have at least 2 years teaching in the grade band for which you apply for your license. So we have 3 different grade bands. There's elementary, it's pre-K 4, or I'm sorry, pre-K 6, 4 through 9, and then 6 through 12. So, yeah. Other questions? Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, so next we have from school counseling, we have Dr. Felice Casoy, and we'll let her speak.
Forget this. Okay, good morning. I'm Felice Casoy, and I am excited to be here, and I'm actually excited to go last because I have some things to talk about that will pull everything together that everybody's talked about here. This is my 34th year in education. I am proud to say that I have 3 degrees from Ohio State University, and they're all from this college. I started out as a teacher, a home economics teacher back in the olden days, and that's what it was called. Then I got my master's degree and my PhD here at Ohio State. I'm currently a school counselor in the Upper Arlington schools. I'll embarrass Hallie. She is my FEEP student, and if you have any other questions that I don't answer, all of those instructors sitting in the back are counselor educators to be. So let me start by saying that the best thing about going into education, just in general, has to do with the relationships you build with children and adolescents. And if you're not into relationships with human beings, I suggest you not go into education. Believe it or not, there are a few people who I think care more about their content area than they care about the little or big human beings they're teaching. The best thing about being a school counselor is that we are collaborators with all the other people that you just heard speak. I don't work in a silo. And in the olden days, people knew what a silo was. Those are the things that, farmers have that hold the grain, right? Okay, in any case, I collaborate. I work with the classroom teachers, I work with the school psychs, I work with my administrator, I work with all the special ed people, the ISs. Those are the people that work with our special ed kids. And I think that as school counselors, we have a unique set of skills that we can pull all of this together in terms of helping kids with their academic development, career development, personal, social, emotional development. And we provide direct services to kids through individual counseling, through groups, and through going into classrooms. We're not guidance counselors anymore, so if you had a guidance counselor in high school, we are not. We're professional school counselors. And then we provide indirect services through working with parents, working with, like I said, the teachers, making referrals to community people. I know this is not supposed to be an interactive session, but I'm curious, just give me a hands up if you had some positive, I don't want to know about the negative ones, any positive interaction with a school counselor through elementary school, middle school, or high school? Okay, that's somewhat encouraging. In any case, we're working really, really hard to make sure that whatever the old view of a guidance counselor is not how you see us. It is a master's program. In the olden days, when I was trained, you had to be a teacher first. We got rid of that qualification because what we realized is that a lot of people decided they were interested in being professional school counselors after they had already picked an undergrad major, and when they found out they had to go back and then do their student teaching and have 3 years of experience, they changed their mind. So I would encourage you to get whatever kind of experience you can working with young people, whether it's summer, being a camp counselor, whether it's through outdoor education, whether it's through mentoring, but get as much experience as you can. The 2-year program does not include a paid internship. Who has a paid internship? Oh, yay, school psych. But we'll get you out in 2 years so that in your 3rd year, you'll only have a job and you'll be paid. So it all kind of works out the same. But your first year, second semester, you'll be doing practicum in the school. That's 10 hours a week. And then your second year, you'll be in the schools the entire year. In addition to taking your coursework, you'll be there 20 hours a week. And we try and make it so that you have experience on more than one grade level. So that maybe 10 hours in an elementary school and let's say 10 hours at a high school. Our program has sort of a social justice lens to it. We want to make sure that all kids reach their highest potential. I know some people in the past, the only 2 sets of people that ever got to know the high school counselor were the kids that were, going to be top of the class or the kids who are at risk of dropping out. We are here for all kids. And we make sure that you have an experience that is as comprehensive as possible. Let me check my notes and see what I've forgotten. Yes, I'm old. In fact, I'll tell you a quick story. So I'm in an elementary school, and I was in a second grade class recently, and I was explaining to the kids that they may notice that from year to year my hair gets grayer and grayer, and I told them that that's a really good thing because it means under this gray hair is a really old brain. I said, but you may notice my head's not getting bigger, so it means that I can't retain all the information that's in my head, and so I need to practice their names every year. And one little boy, second grader named Jared, raised his hand. He said, Dr. Kasoy, it's okay. He said, my great aunt had a brain injury and she doesn't remember very well anymore either. So that's why I'm checking my paper, and I did not have a brain injury. I was just getting older. Oh, I know what I want to talk about real quickly. So if you decide to apply for the program, I just want to let you know that these are some of the things you're going to need to be thinking about. To make sure that you have an official transcript, to make sure you take the GREs, and don't do what I did. I took the GREs for my doctoral program when I was 50, so it had been 25 years, and I needed to hire a tutor. You need to be thinking about your statement of intent, why this is important to you. And then, of course, you will need 3 letters of recommendation. And I know this kind of sounds silly, but sometimes when you go to a large university, you forget to take the time to develop relationships with your professors. And then when it comes time for letters of intent, you think, ooh, I don't really know who to ask. So if there's somebody you feel kind of connected to, make sure that you reach out and develop a relationship so they know you outside of the classroom, so that when you need that letter of recommendation, you feel like there's somebody that you can ask. I think that is everything that I wanted to say, other than school counselors now are really making sure that they are collecting data, that both quantitative and qualitative data, so that we can be accountable for the difference that we're making in kids' lives. And I think that's something that may be a little foreign to some of you, coming from a background where perhaps you didn't even have a relationship or know your school counselor. Okay, does anybody have any questions for me? Yeah. No, they can be from other people, but I just think since part of the review process is how they think you're going to do in an academic setting, it helps if somebody of those 3 people can speak to your abilities as a student. Any other questions? The peanut gallery in the back, what did I forget? That makes school counseling wonderful. Oh, aren't they impressive? I hit the collaboration. Okay, that was great. Wait, JP, you can't have the mic yet. Okay, what else? JP was my intern. That's why he's awesome, because he was at Wycliffe. Anything else? Hallie, I'm going to put you on the spot. She's trying to hide. Actually, I really mean this very seriously. Dr. Goddard would agree with this, I am at one of the most amazing schools in Central Ohio. I'm at Wycliffe Elementary School, which is a progressive school. We are all about authentic learning and an emerging curriculum, and if any of you are interested in any of the fields you've heard today, school psychology, school counseling, administration, special education, come spend a day with me. Any of the people in any of those capacities would host you, and if you're on the fence, you will come to my school and decide that there's no other place you'd rather be than in education. Any other questions? Okay, I'm done with my tap dance.
All right. So we have one more speaker, and then we're going to open them up for a panel of questions. So I want you guys to start thinking about questions to ask, not while the other speaker is speaking. So right now we have, for all those who are still thinking classroom education is the way to go, we have Katie Watkins from Teaching and Learning, and she's going to come up and talk about all the different grad programs available for classroom teachers.
Hi, hey, I see some familiar faces. I used to be an undergrad advisor, and now I've moved over to the side of graduate life. So I just want to, maybe you guys did the whole who wants to be a teacher thing at the beginning. I was woefully late, so I apologize. Did you guys already raise your hands and do all that fun stuff? I assume most of you want to be teachers, right? Who's thinking special ed? Okay, and then who's for sure school counseling? Hey, Luke. All right. Okay, so mostly everybody else is thinking about the undergraduate licensure program, the BSED. Yeah? Who's already in the major? Who is one of those lucky people that applied and got in already? Okay, cool. I just like to gauge because our program's another, some of you are like, I'm kind of in, I'm not really sure. Okay, maybe you've been conditionally accepted. So basically, I don't know if all of you are, oh, time out, hold on. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a really loud talker. I'm like, all over the microphone. Okay, sorry. Okay, so anyway, some of you may not know, but at Ohio State, you can get your undergraduate or your license to teach at an undergraduate level, but then also at a graduate level. So for those of you who are maybe above sophomore level or who are transfer students, this might end up being a more efficient way for you to get your license than the undergraduate programs, other than special ed, because you guys are your own special little area, and we don't work with that program in teaching and learning. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our programs, and then I definitely want to invite anybody who's interested to come visit us. We're in Arps Hall, 227, and we can talk more about what it would look like for you if you went on that path. So basically what we have to offer is a 1-year accelerated teacher licensure program. I just slam dunked the last person. She was like, 2 years, haha. I'm like, no, 1 year. 1 year, and then you can go out in the world and work, right? So yeah, so basically our program is set up in a way that you go through in a cohort style. So each licensure area is a cohort, and you travel through together as a happy little family to get your license. It's 1 year starting in the summer every year, okay? So there's no flexibility with that, but it's very efficient and practical. It's still a regular graduate degree, Master's of Education, so you're still gonna be taking 30 graduate credit hours, but you are cramming them into 1 year. It sounds like a lot. It is. It's a very intensive program, but a lot of those credit hours are very practical field experiences, so you're not doing 30 hours of coursework and all of that. So it's balanced out evenly like that. What we have to offer as far as programs, it's very similar to the undergrad program, but we have a few extras for you to choose from. So of course you can do early or middle childhood, integrated language arts. We have an integrated social studies program. So if you wanted to teach 7 through 12, history, social studies, government, any of that stuff, we offer that at the graduate level. And then we also have foreign language education, and we cover more than just Spanish and French. So if you were interested in teaching a different language than Spanish or French, we have Russian, Italian, I'm going to forget. We have Arabic, Chinese, Japanese, all kinds of languages. And then additionally, we offer sensory impairments licensure, so you can do hearing impairments or visual impairments, which is a very high need area, especially in the state of Ohio right now. So great programs. Nationally ranked, of course, like all of Ohio State's programs. We're just all so fancy here at OSU. It's awesome. You guys made a good choice coming here. What else do I want to tell you? It was great advice. I didn't even catch the last speaker's name because I was sitting in the back trying to remember everything I was going to talk about. But such great advice about preparing yourself now, getting to know your instructors and professors and nailing down those letters of recommendation. We require that you submit 3 for our program and a statement of intent. One of the bonuses for our program is that you do not need to take the GRE unless your GPA is below a 3.0, okay? And you should be doing happy dances right now because graduate school, for the most part, requires a GRE. So that's a plus, I suppose. If you did well academically, you can forego the GRE. One other thing to know about our program and why I think it's so important for you to come and meet with an advisor, no matter what level you are right now, is because we require that you come in with prerequisites completed to be able to get through the program in 1 year. It's unheard of to do any kind of licensure program in a year. Obviously, you need to have some coursework. So the good thing is that if you're currently working toward your undergraduate BSED program, the courses are very similar, if not almost exactly the same. So we can work with you to help you figure out a path to finish your undergraduate degree and then come over to the master's level program to get your license. One other thing I wanted to mention too is that people always say, well, Katie, I don't want to get my MED because I'm not going to be able to get a job, or they're not going to be able to afford to pay me because I'm going to be so valuable. Who's heard that before about not being able to get a job? You can raise your hand. Be honest. All right. It hurts my heart.
So one thing, and I thought that as well when I used to work with the undergrad. I was like, oh no, go with the undergrad. That's the way to go. But the truth is that as far as our program is concerned, none of our students have problems finding a job immediately out of the program. In fact, they are highly recruited. I was literally sitting in the office of one of the main faculty members. We were meeting about some things, and the phone rings, and it was the Gahanna City Schools or superintendent. I don't know. I'm not a teacher. I don't even know all the lingo, but somebody who was very high up in the hiring process for Gahanna City Schools, and they were like, yeah, can you send us your 6 top students? And she's like, oh, fine, okay, blah, 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 and hangs up. And I was like, what was that? And she told me, and then she was like, this happens all the time. And I'm just like, really? And I actually did a survey of the program managers for the MED. They manage each cohort, and they said that nearly 100% placement for the last 3 years in each cohort. Most of the time, if people don't get a job, it's because they either focus on one school district and they don't want to work anywhere else in the whole entire state or world. Come on, people. Let's be flexible. And then additionally, they maybe decided after all of that work, they didn't want to be a teacher anymore after all. I'd like to think by the time you get there, you're pretty decisive, I guess, but it happens. So I just want you to, don't be afraid of the program. Just think about, your options. It's always good to have Plan B and Plan C, especially at Ohio State with education, because it's so competitive and there are so many options and all of that. So before we move to the panel, I guess, are there any specific questions about the graduate level licensure programs? Way in the back. Yeah, so she asked about the application deadline. So our program, like I said, starts in the summer. Because of that, we require applications to be turned in by November 15th. Today is the 18th, so that's not good timing. But you can always come in and talk to an advisor, and we can see if you're prepared to apply for next year. Our process, the way it works, is that you apply by the 15th. We do a short interview with each candidate now. That's a new thing. And that will happen at the very beginning of the spring term, and then you will find out by mid-February if you've been offered a seat. And typically we try to keep each cohort to around 30 students. That doesn't mean we're going to have all the seats filled. It doesn't mean that we won't go over. We just try to find the best folks and go from there. So, are there any other questions? Yes?
If you get your BSED, can you still go in the, would you still go to the same master's program?
Great question. And no, thanks for asking that, because I forgot that I also wanted to mention that we do offer endorsements through our office as well as an MA in education. So that's what you would do if you already have a license. This is really, I'm just like awkward on this chair. If you already have a license and you want to get a master's in education, you could do the MA program. We also offer a PhD program. So if you're really excited about it, you could do that. They're very research-based. They're not practical at all. Our MED is the more practical program. Who's heard about endorsements before? I just want to briefly mention them. Okay, good. So I'm not speaking another language here. Basically, for those of you who don't know, basically there are additional credentials you can add onto your license. So if you have an Ohio license in anything, you can add endorsements to allow yourself to teach more subjects or more age groups. So we have an early childhood endorsement that you can add to your early childhood licensure to teach grades 4 and 5 as well in all subjects. You can do a middle childhood endorsement where you are adding the additional 2 content areas that you don't have. We also offer a TESOL endorsement if you would like to take 6 classes and then be able to teach K through 12 TESOL. Additionally, we offer a reading endorsement and a P6 math endorsement. So if you're like a STEM math person, or if you've taught math for 3 years or more, you could add the younger grade as a math specialist on there as well. So lots of options. Definitely come visit us. Are there any other questions? Yes?
In terms of undergraduate
Is there anything specific? What?
do you have to be an education major?
No, that's a great question. The question was, do you have to be an education major to do our program? And no. In fact, we get people, especially on the secondary level, that come, say they want to be a social studies teacher, they'll do like a history major, and then they come over. So it's just important to work with your undergraduate advisor and an advisor from Graduate Student Services to make sure that you're covering all of your, of course, undergraduate degree requirements, and then fitting in those prerequisite requirements that we have. So there are definitely majors that make sense to do depending on the certain areas you want to teach, and we can kind of work with you to identify that. So, any other questions? You guys are a great crowd. Someone way in the back. Oh, there's a poll. Hello. Uh-huh. Yeah, February 15th is our goal. So we will be notifying people probably mid-December if they are going to get an interview, and then that would happen at the beginning of January when you come back from the break. Yeah, you're welcome. Any other questions? No? Awesome. Thanks for having me, you guys.
We're going to have all our presenters come back up for a panel, which means this is the interactive part. You guys need to ask questions. So what I want you to do is they're filtering up here, is lean to the person next to you, and everybody come up with at least one question that you have. Okay? So go, ask questions. All right. Now we're getting there. So judging by the amount of noise, it sounds like there's lots of questions. So we're going to let you guys just turn it over to you guys. This is your chance. These lovely four ladies who have all come in to volunteer their time today to help you guys out. So what kind of questions do we have? Yeah, in the back over there. Yes.
This is for Katie. Do other universities have those types of programs, like a one-year program, or is that just like an online?
So, do I need mic? Sorry. No, she said it'll pick up.
It's fine.
It'll pick up. And I'm a little loud. I already got yelled at. So basically, there are other graduate level programs that you can do. As far as I know, in Ohio, we're the only one-year accelerated program. A lot of schools offer 2-year teacher licensure programs, and depending on the school, they're going to require that you have. It's going to vary as far as how much you have to come in completed already. Unlike our program, where we require that you have everything. So it's going to really vary, and it's good to kind of start looking at all of those options. Oddly enough, I have a really great chart that shows all the schools in Ohio and the different programs that they offer. So anybody who wants, are you going to be giving our email addresses and stuff?
I can. Yeah, if you send them to me, then I'll make sure they
Sure,
get out there.
yeah. I mean, anybody who wants to just get more information can email me, and I can send you some info. So yeah. So yes and no. I mean, we're obviously the best option.
Yes, back here.
How long does the special ed master's program take?
Okay, the question was, how long does the special ed master's program take? Our special ed presenter is left.
1 year.
So there we go. There's the answer. 1 year. Yes. Okay.
If you are planning to graduate in the summer, this is for anybody, and you're planning to go into the graduate program, I know that master's starts in July. Does everyone else, like, is it kind of flexible to start whenever? How does that really work out?
Our program, you can start pretty much any time. We also have an accelerated licensure program, which starts in the summer and finishes the subsequent summer. But other people that are interested in just picking up administrative courses can start pretty much any time as long as the prerequisite for the course.
And school psych starts, you go through as a cohort, and you have to start in fall, so.
And same with counselor ed, it's a cohort model, so you have to start with them.
So come to Ed Admin.
No, so use that time to get lots of experience doing things with kids, and that'll just strengthen your application for the counselor ed program.
We would say the same thing for T&L. Get some more experience with kids and then come to us.
That mentoring sign-up sheet is still around there somewhere, so whoever wants it. Yes, right here.
As administration goes, what does that look like for licensure to be like a principal compared to like an athletic director?
It would be similar to that. We, and again, I was the superintendent at Big Walnut, which was up in Delaware County. We had an athletic director who did not have a teaching license, but came from higher ed, and it was a non-certificated athletic director. I've also been in districts where we've had former principals, former curriculum staff members who decided to go into that. So if you have a principal's license, and again, the benefit of the principal's license is that it really opens up pretty much every administrative position in a district that you might be interested in, with the exception of a treasurer, assistant superintendent, or superintendent. So if you have some interest in going in that direction, I would encourage you to, to consider the principal licensure program.
What next? Yes, over here.
I know you touched on this, but what is the major difference between a guidance counselor and a professional school counselor? Can you just expand on it a little bit?
Yeah, so I think the best way to explain it is that we have tried to make sure that our services that we deliver are more inclusive, more comprehensive, I guess would be the right word. There were a lot of districts that didn't have elementary counselors. For starters, they were just primarily seen as a high school person, maybe just for careers or for course selection. So we want to make sure that the program is comprehensive and we're talking about, the personal and social domain as well as the academic and the career, and that we're going into the classroom delivering our services in addition to individual services and groups, and that we're also, as I said, collaborating with all the other support people in a school setting in addition to the parents and the
What other questions we have? I know we had a bunch. You guys were all talking.
talk about the weather.
Yeah, cold it was.
No, I just know.
Yes, all the way in the back.
My question is, if you have to take the GRE to get into the accelerated program, would you prefer students,
Are you talking to me specifically? No, you're okay. I would say, that's a great question. If you didn't hear what she was asking, it was, will students who need to take the GRE for GPA purposes be looked at differently than students who don't? I would say in any competitive program, you're always going to have, you're always going to have to take into consideration that the higher achieving you are academically, the more attractive you're going to look as a candidate. But I would also say that there's a reason why we have that in place, because we don't believe that every single student, we can measure them completely on their GPA alone. So there could be various reasons why somebody's coming in with below a 3.0 GPA. A lot of people didn't go into education right away. Maybe they started out in pre-med or something else and they didn't do very well in a few courses. And we don't want to ruin somebody's opportunity just because of the GPA issue. So there are state requirements we have to follow, the 2.75 or higher, but we do look at every candidate equally. We base it on all of your application materials. We put a lot of emphasis on your letters of recommendation and especially your letter of intent. Anybody who can write well, who can exhibit strong academic writing, that's going to go a long, long way. So that would be something to focus your energy on as well if you're not a more high-achieving academic.
And can I chime in with something?
Yeah.
I just want to also say, don't let your GRE scores discourage you from applying. I know that there may be situations where we'll ask you to retake your GREs, but we also know, kind of like you were saying, we know that the GRE scores don't necessarily correlate with your success in our program, which is an unfortunate thing, but it's just a requirement of the university. And as a school counselor, there are a lot of other skills we'd like to measure of yours other than your quantitative ability, but it's just part of what you have to do. So if for some reason your GRE scores don't turn out to be what you hope for them to be, let us look at them and let us decide and let us help you rather than you self-selecting out right from the start.
And I think that could be another question. Is there something else involved, like an interview process or something for any of the programs?
Well, we have an interview, so we'll look at the application and then we'll invite about 25 to 30 people in for an interview, and then we select anywhere from 10 to 12, 10 to 15 people from those 25 to 30 people that come in for the interview?
We do not, we do require the GRE if your undergrad GPA is below a 3-point. We do require 3 letters of recommendation. And we would like to see one, if you're a classroom teacher applying for an administrative program area, then we would like to see one come from your building supervisor, the principal that you work with, and other people who can speak to your professional skills and contributions.
We have an interview process too, very similar. We invite probably 25 people, and we have individual interview. It's a whole day. We have individual interview, group interview, you do some writing, and then we like to keep our cohort at around 12.
Yes, over here in the house state.
So you said about teaching endorsements and like the teach someone to do it or 6 classes. Can you do that when you're still an undergrad, or do you have to be?
No, that's a great question. So most of the endorsements, you do need to have a license to be able to begin pursuing them. All of them, for the most part, they have to be taken at a graduate level. So that doesn't mean that you have to already have a master's degree or be in a graduate program. You can just enroll as a graduate non-degree student and take the classes. Early childhood generalist, if you're in the early childhood BSED program or in the MED program, you can technically start to take the classes before at an undergraduate level, but they do have some prerequisites. Middle childhood, you can take your content, but the methods courses you cannot take until you have already achieved a teaching license. So, but otherwise, they kind of all vary, but otherwise they all have to be at a graduate level.
And the teacher leader endorsement actually has to be Toastmasters.
Right here in front.
How many people apply / are accepted to your program?
Well, my program. He asked them how many people apply and get accepted to my program. I like being important. It doesn't happen very often. No, but basically, we try to keep the cohorts to about 30 each. We don't want them to be too large. As far as numbers go, it really varies per year. Since the BSED has come to Ohio State the last 2 years, we've seen our numbers go down quite a bit. So oddly, right now, like for example, early or middle childhood, if you were to apply to the MED, you would be you'd be applying against a smaller pool of students at this point. So I think it's all going to even out in the next couple of years as things balance. But right now, it's actually I'm actually working on applications right now. I think early childhood I saw last about 35, and middle is really close to 40. I have to check again because the system has been slowly updating, but otherwise the other cohorts right now we don't have. There's no more than 30 in each one. So, and I forgot to mention we have math and science as well. I don't think I did mention that, but yeah. So I mean, right now it's quite small. So yeah, take that for what you will, I guess.
Right here in the back.
What would you consider to be a competitive GPA to get accepted into your master's programs?
In school counseling, I don't know, guys. What's a competitive GPA?
I have 3 on it, so.
You got what?
It's a lot of how you interview and how you, like your letter, and they take a lot of that.
If you're looking for a small cohort, you're looking for being quite experienced, and are you a good fit, and usually some people are, right? And so they'll really consider people the best person overall, and not just sort of that grade.
Thank you.
Didn't I do a good job answering the question? For our programs, I would say the average really varies by area. Early childhood is probably around 3.4, 3.5 average. The other areas kind of teeter between like a 3, 2, but again, that's just one piece of the puzzle. So.
And I just want to echo that, because in a field where relationships are so important, your interview, how you interact with the other people when you come in on that particular day is just incredibly important.
I don't know about the other programs, but for the licensure, teacher licensure programs, we have to report to the state on dispositions. Do you all do that? It's probably a little different. We have to report on dispositional things. So in our interview, we're trying to gauge those kinds of things. And for those of you who went through the BSED interview, the group interview, that's part of what they're doing as well. So, you know, those are just, it's so important to think about those aspects of it. I know it's intimidating to think about graduate school, and it's intimidating to think about Ohio State and how great the programs are, but just remember that, keep that, you know, in your brain that that's not the only thing that matters.
And I think for us too, it's at least a 3.0. If you have a GPA below that, you're probably not going to be competitive. But beyond that, if you've met the 3.0, we're looking at other aspects of your candidacy, including your letter of intent. Why do you want to go into administration? You know, letters of recommendation, other experiences, evidence of your success as a classroom teacher.
I would say the same. Probably the average GPA is probably between a 3.4 and 3.5. And I will say that we turned down people that had a 3.8. So just, and I think that's important because a lot of times people think, well, if I have a high GPA, then I'm a slam dunk in the program. And the interview honestly can sink you because of a variety of different things, because of the other things we're looking for. And so I always say, if I have somebody in an interview that is amazing, if they have a 3.1, I will take them over the 3.8. And so I think that's the other thing to know. We have turned down people that have had a 3.8.
We got time for one more. We'll go up here in the front and then, oh, over here, I'm sorry. We'll go right here then.
Two more.
Two more.
I was just wondering if any of you knew about any of the financial aid programs or options for your programs.
We don't have a lot.
Okay.
So I would say that most of our doctoral students are funded, and they're funded from a variety of places around the university. And we develop relationships with those places that will hire our students. For the EDS students, probably maybe about half have some funding, and then the other half self-supporting, so they're doing financial aid. But we do have some EDS students, so we try to be very upfront that we don't, for the program, have a lot of funding, but there are funding, like literally there was a doctoral student that I found her funding literally the week before school started. And so she had no plans to move up. She moved up that weekend, came in and got a position. So for me, I try to really, especially for the doctoral students, try to find, you know, different places on campus and try to stay in touch. For her, I literally went on a listserv and put it out there, and we didn't hear anything, and then all of a sudden somebody emailed and said, do you still have a student that needs some assistant? And so I was able, so she did a telephone interview with her and hired her sight unseen, and it's worked out great, so, yeah.
And a lot of our students are currently employed in the Franklin County area, so many of them have fee scripts and or fee waivers, whatever you call them. And we structure our full-time program so that we tack on the field experiences so that you will be above the 8 hours, because I think everything beyond 8 hours is the same fee. So districts often, teacher will bring in fee waivers for the first maybe 3 hours, and those are given to your school districts and usually given out by the teacher associations. And then, so hopefully there's a donut in between there that the teachers will pay for, and then above that it's at no additional cost.
For school counseling, so I'd say all of our doc students get funding one way or the other. For our master's level students, you can see half of the cohort is GAs, so they're getting funded. But what I would say typically happens is it ebbs and flows. So when these guys came in as first years, they got these positions, so it meant there weren't a lot of positions for the cohort that came in behind them, but then they're going to graduate, and then all those positions are going to be open again. So it ebbs and flows a little bit, but it's a really good question to ask during your interview.
So you can come back and teach FEEP.
Yeah.
For T&L, for the MED program, the Master of Education, there are a couple fellowships that you would be eligible to apply for. Because of the way the program's structured, we don't have the opportunity to do like an assistantship during the program, because you're just literally in field experiences and in classes all day long. But we do offer a couple of there's a university fellowship, and that's offered to very high achieving students, 3.6 or above. You can apply for that. There is a limit to the number of those that are given out. They're typically, honestly, given to PhD students in their first year. The graduate school also has what's called the Enrichment Fellowship. This one, you only need a 3.1 GPA or higher. You do need a GRE for both of these as well, but the scores are very achievable. But the thing about the Enrichment Fellowship is that you have to be able to bring in an element of diversity to the program. So that can be lots of different things. It's very broadly defined, but that's important to keep in mind. And then, of course, EHE does offer scholarships to graduate students. You can still apply for EHE scholarships on the scholarships website. So that's always an option as well for funding.
Great. Okay, last one then.
I was going to ask how intensive the courses are for the school psychology program.
It's pretty intense. It's a very prescriptive program, meaning the first 2 years, there's no deviation. And we really found that going to semesters, quarters, we have much more variability. And so going into semesters, I think it's generally about, averages about 17 hours a semester. And then the second year is practicum. But then your third year, you're in a full-time internship, so you're in the schools working.
And is it all daytime traditional classes?
No, some of them are in the afternoon because some of our students do have assistantships, and a lot of the education classes are in the afternoon. All the school site classes are during the day, except for one of them that I teach. So sometimes they'll actually have 2 whole days open, all their classes are on 3 days. It sort of varies. They almost all have, like, I think this semester they have a night class Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So it means their days are much more open. So I think there is that sort of flexibility because a lot of the classes they're in are evening classes, like 4 and 6:30 or 7 o'clock. So there are some days. Or they'll have like a whole day where there's 3 straight classes. A lot of times they actually prefer that, even though it seems very intense, because then they usually have 2 days that are open.
JP, I did want to say, because you made me think, so in counselor education, all of our classes are after 4 o'clock. So because people have to be available during the school day, but it also means that for your entire first year, you're only in practicum 10 hours a week, so there's plenty of time for part-time jobs. We have a lot of people that work part-time. And then, of course, it gets a little trickier the second year because you're working 20 hours a week, but if you don't have a TA position, then you can use those other 20 hours a week to work. So all of our classes are after 4 o'clock.
Excellent. All right, so just by a quick show of hands, I want to know how many of you are thinking of possibly applying for one of these master's, graduate? That's awesome. Excellent. Very good. Okay, good. Let's thank our presenters for